Hi, I'm Ashley Michelle Marsh, set decorator, and I want to tell you a little bit about Jesse's parents' house. The biggest challenge for us on the set decoration team boiled down to how could we match two different locations and keep the spirit true to Breaking Bad. Due to other scheduling factors, we weren't actually able to film at the original location for interior scenes. We had to immediately find a quick visual solution. The answer? These shears in the background behind the sink. In just a few scenes, when Jesse is breaking in through the back of the house, you can see the same curtain shears from the outside in the backyard. This small little trick helps your brain seamlessly put together the location without any other context. Fortunately, most viewers have already seen the background in other episodes, but these shears firmly plant where the kitchen is, where it's supposed to be. We also use the same method in the front and side of the original exterior house, using a bold maroon pattern. In terms of style choices, we wanted to continue the very traditional feeling that Jesse's family seems to portray. Classic dark wood tones, traditional lighting, traditional rugs. These are themes that can also be seen in the original interior on Breaking Bad. In the interior of Breaking Bad, they sat at a round dining table. So we matched the same type of table, but moved it to the foyer. For the art choices, with Jesse's sly maneuvering, I found it very cool to use classic Anglo art of noble fox hunting, since Jesse has certainly proven himself to be one sly fox. Also, look closely. Throughout the house, you might notice that there's very little evidence of Jesse. Over the course of Jesse's struggles, his family has almost completely eradicated him from their history. If you look around, you'll only see photos of Jake, but some things can't be removed. In an upcoming scene, you can see that they did not remove Jesse from the family height chart.
Hi, this is Mark Hansen again, just following up with some more interesting prop information.
When Jesse breaks back into his parents' house, I remember that night we had to do a big wet down. Special effects did a big wet down there on the ground, as you can see. That's the Pinkman's Prius bumper sticker, which you barely can see, was something that was established back on season 1 of Breaking Bad, which was the only season I didn't do. So to recreate that bumper sticker for just the detailed continuity that we do on this show, we had to do a lot of really close-up still grabs and figure out what it actually was. Ultimately, it was 3 stick figures, mom, dad, one son, and a dog and a cat. So that's always been a bone of contention for Jesse because he was left off the bumper sticker. There's Aaron Paul, a fantastic actor, super sweet guy, really just a pleasure to work with. He looks intense, but as soon as he finishes his take, he's a pleasure. He's cruising around the Pinkman house, and we shot this exterior was one location, and then when he goes inside, it's actually a different house. So all we were doing here was establishing the exterior that was also established on season 1, and pulling up bricks. That was something we preset. He gets down there, gets the key. He walks in the house, and it's interesting. You won't see it here, but he comes back to this area because that's where the phone book is. We spent a lot of time picking the phone that goes with the phone book that ultimately we didn't end up seeing, but I think I brought probably 30 different vintage phones for Vince to look at, and everything from a duck phone to a Mickey Mouse phone to I think a bunch of sort of period orange and green phones, and I think we ended up going with an orange wall phone for that. Jesse going to the safe. This is a safe that we pre-rigged. It's a push button safe that we set up so that Jesse literally could push any combination of numbers and it would open the safe up, just to make it super actor friendly. that's one of the things where he doesn't need to be thinking about a number. We can just let him push any button and it'll be gagged to open up. The hatch itself did not stay open in real life, so that's another thing we did to help the actor. And also Vince wanted it to where it was sort of framing him out in a special way. The two guns that he picks up, Jesse's dad is not a gun guy. He just happens to have a couple vintage guns. The one in his left hand was an old revolver, and the one in his right was an old World War II 22 caliber. They call them pea shooters. And it was a very specific gun in Vince's head that he wanted.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave Porter, composer of the original music for El Camino. And in this scene, we have Jesse having just left his parents' house in tracking down Neil Candy. And as Vince and I discussed this scene, we talked about how it's very much an offshoot of the scene which precedes it, where he does visit his parents' house and gathers the guns from the safe, leading us towards an inevitable shootout to come, as we all know. And this moment is very much about the tension building as we connect the dots here between Jesse at his parents' house and him sneaking into the property owned by Neil Candy, who has the money that's going to be necessary for him to escape. So the first part of this cue is very much about a connection of tension to the scene before. And now you'll note as he drops into the yard here, the music changes and it moves up a notch, but also changes considerably to leave a lot of space for the listener. Because as Jesse approaches the office here, we need to hear what Jesse's hearing. And as Jesse puts together what exactly it is he's up against. His goal here, of course, is to have a confrontation with Neil Candy. And here he sees, an amazing opportunity. Here he is all on his own, walking out to the gate. And the tension builds here as Jesse contemplates a move at a time when he's got the opportunity to do it, but he waits a moment too long, and then the moment is gone.
Hi, this is Kiira, Arai, and I'm the local casting director for El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. I'm also the local casting director for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And in this scene here, Jesse returns to Candy Welding Compound so he can confront Neil and ask him for the remaining money that he still needs in order to pay the disappearer and start a new life. As you can see, he's been interrupted by this vehicle that pulls up, and Neil, Casey, and their friends greet this big, tough guy that you might remember and recognize from Better Call Saul and know as Man Mountain. He was hired to do different protecting jobs in Better Call Saul. And here he's just letting Neil know what the payment is for the strippers that he's brought them. He's their driver and bodyguard in El Camino. And a little bit later, one of the strippers reveals that, in fact, his name is Clarence. So this was a really cool and fun Easter egg reveal, and I had a lot of fun being able to bring his character back and also having cast some of the other folks in this scene.
Hello, this is Kevin Rankin. I play Kenny on Breaking Bad. And I was very honored to be invited back to the sandbox to play with these artists. There's Scott MacArthur, and I have the same manager. Been hearing about Scott for years. Met him first day right here on set. A lovely guy, fantastic actor, man. Killed this role. I know Jesse Plemons there. I've known Jesse since he was 18. Worked on a show called Friday Night Lights. Never shared a frame with him, but we hung out quite a bit. when he was a young man. Yeah, I didn't actually get to work on camera together till Breaking Bad. And that hair, that lovely hair you see, I actually had, my hair was pretty short there. I had to have a wig, fitted for a wig for this. I was working on another television show called Claws. And I was fitted for a wig, actually, at drop-off. I was dropping my kid off at school. One of the other students' mothers happened to do hair. And she fitted me for the wig. Wonderful, beautiful job. Yeah, I think they did a great match, you know. I think, 6 years between those. Yeah, I love the relationship between Kenny and Todd. I wish we had more of that. I just loved how he looked at Todd. I think he was a little jealous of how Uncle Jack really fawned over Todd. At least Kenny thought so. I loved how Katy was trying to prove his point, a little bit of cognitive dissonance. He was so sold on this thing just didn't look strong enough, so he was gonna just prove it, yank on it, give that wig a test. And he's just looking there. And of course, Kenny's probably has a lot of issues, and gambling is one of them. So he's just looking for anything to gamble, or a reason to step up into Scott MacArthur's face. This was shot over 2 days. This scene, one day was a lot colder than the one before, so we had you could just see our breath every time we took a breath. So Vince was brilliant. Had to take a drink of some cold water, swish it around before the scene, spit it out, or swallow, depends on who you are as a guy. And then you do the scene, and you couldn't see your breath. It was great. Yeah, Aaron Paul, this guy, he's an athlete. He was catching some air. I think I was throwing in some Peter Pan lines. Didn't really make it, but Jesse just has such a genuine nature in Plemons' work. I love it. I love it. Kenny's willing to take it to the next level right here. Yeah. He's a pep talker. See, I think he could have been a coach, could have been some sort of motivational speaker. Whatever gets your motor running. I do know that I think Vince might have brought it up. There's Walter White's handprint, bloody handprint. It's still on one of these little canisters in here. I loved playing Kenny. I was shocked to get the part in the first place. Shocked to be invited back. Shows how little I think of myself. So there you go. There's a nice gift for everyone to know. Lovely people.
Hi, my name's Katy Galow, and I was the second AD on the film. So I actually love this scene because it was my first time to ever rush call in a beetle. We weren't supposed to have the beetle this day, and we got the beetle in. Our animal trainer, Kip, was great. But then we also had the fun beetles hibernate in the winter, and then we shot this in the dead of winter in New Mexico where it was cold. So we actually had to have heaters all around the set so that the beetle would move. And then I love this shot of Aaron. I feel like you can see his makeup really well. That Sherry and Laverne did so well. Those scars took him about an hour, and it just got better and better throughout the entire movie. Also, this is a visual effects shot, which a lot of people wouldn't know. Truly, the girls are standing inside like a sort of a storage space, and they're just walking out now. The girls were also troopers there. It was freezing when we filmed this, and they did not complain once. They're also improvising all their lines right now, and it truly just got funnier and funnier each take. Vince is an amazing writer, but this was hysterical.
I'm never coming back to this dump place again.
I love this cameo with Big Dave because it goes to Better Call Saul, which is always a nice nod. Our biggest fear with him was that he wouldn't fit in the Hummer, but he did. So that was good. And then this is actually on a technical side a big lockup for us because the warehouse across the street was open. So that means I needed more people all the way down that street and some in the warehouse just for safety to make sure no one came out. All right. This shot always reminds me of Aaron's leather jacket. big part of his character, big part of the movie. And I think we had about 13 to 14 different versions because his jacket's about to go through even more than what it already has. Now we get to our boys. The good thing about the scene is that we had a rehearsal. We were actually able to bring all of them in, including the girls, to have a rehearsal one day after we filmed, which is a rarity. Because this many people in that tight of a space, it was really nice to be able to block it. The guys also are improvising here, and they got into their scenes more and more each time. And the Scots, we love them. But yeah, this was the start of a big 4-day shoot, because it's about to get very technical after this.
My name is Doug Coleman. I was the stunt coordinator on El Camino, Breaking Bad movie. I had the privilege of working with Vince Gilligan and learned so much from him. This is a piece of business where we are in the Wild West. It's a showdown where two guys are going to draw on each other for the prize.
Oh, yeah?
And the way Vince builds the tension in this scene is just amazing. With the camera work, with the close-ups of the eyes. The close-ups of the eyes reminded me so much of Martin Scorsese and Cape Fear and some other things that he's done. It takes me to these epic scenes in movies. But it's really it's used so well here.
Oh, he's got one now, doesn't he? So, you know.
I love when they walk in. These guys are they're partying. They've been with women. They're doing cocaine. They're drinking. And then zip, music stops. And here we go. The actors that are in there, I've worked with a few of them. I had the pleasure of working with Scott Shepard. He's playing Casey. I worked with him on Hostels, had to kill him on a movie called Hostels with Christian Bale. I got to work with Brendan Saxton. He was on 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Had a lovely scene in that with Frances McDormand. And Aaron Paul. Aaron Paul, what can I say? What a pleasure it is to work with Aaron Paul. He wanted to do most every stunt on this film, which he did pretty much everything. It was pretty incredible. He's very talented. He's very physical and smart. And he's certainly not going to do anything that's above his head, and he realizes that.
What is that? Let me see that thing.
In this piece, in the shootout, we had to prep and we had to prep the doors and the floor with padding. We just wanted to take all the precautions that we could. We also did some gun training, so everybody knew what it would sound like in that environment and what the guns would be doing. So we'd look at safety on everything we do.
I'm gone forever.
But it's a pretty bold move for this guy to walk in by himself into a room of 5 guys. It's pretty cool. Gosh, what else can I say? Like I said earlier, we had to prep the door. This piece of business where he walks up and shuts the door reminded me and took me back to a movie called A Bronx Tale. Robert De Niro directed it. And it's a piece where these bikers are in a bar, another showdown, and Chaz Palminteri walks over and shuts the door to lock them in, even though it seems one-sided. And it took me back to that, just that door shutting here. It was really clever. The shots of the twitching fingers, the shots over the holster onto Aaron's face, Jesse's face. So cool. Again, the tension being built. So as the shootout happens, Jesse shoots through his jacket. What we don't see in this particular clip that I'm involved with is that his jacket is on fire where the bullets left the leather. So there's a couple scenes after this that his jacket's on fire, which was really cool. It's a great idea. These shots are just incredible. Over the holster. Tension building. Aha, so here we see a third party who may get involved in the gun battle, which he does later. The tension is just incredible. These eyes shots, this is what takes me back to Martin Scorsese, Cape Fear, so many other films, The Aviator. Those tight shots just build. And here we go with the third party, part of the shootout. Casey is diving, running, shooting, and bam, right in the head. Into the vending machine he goes. That was done by Jimmy Hart. That was the stunt man that did that part of the sequence. Other than that, it was all the actors.
Hi, I'm Werner Hahnlein, the special effects coordinator on El Camino. This shot consisted of rigging squibs on people and on glass, on couches, on desktops. A lot of that gets buried in the background. We had squibs rigged on Neil, the character, and we had bullet hits front and back. We had a bloody sponge rigged on his back, so as he slid down the wall, he left a nice big skid mark. We show all that to Vince prior, and he decides how much blood, how much spray, how much drip. So we always want to make sure we're on the same page when we come to start shooting. As far as the glass goes, we had double squibs rigged on every piece of glass because we don't want to have one single failure, because that would be a reset, and reset takes a lot of time, and filming is very expensive, and we don't want to waste an hour trying to reset and clean up and do this again when we could have got it right the first time. Go. What we do on that jacket there, we make sure we fireproof the jacket so it doesn't catch fire. Then we put a little bit of fire paste on there. We tested this with Aaron, and he was fine putting it out with his bare hand, which was very cool. As this glass fell, we had some of those rigged. The very first take we did, one fell on its own, and Vince loved it, so then we had to kind of tie that into the rest of it. As Jesse's leaving, we see that he's thinking about it, so we know that he goes back inside and pre-rigs something to kind of shut this place down for good. What we see here, when Jesse has an idea to head back in, what he's trying to do is give himself some time to exit the premises before Candy Welding gets a major remodel. And what we did there, we take a non-flammable welding tank and we remove the top so no pressure can build up and the heat can escape. And then we just have to make sure we use a nice clean spot every time on that tank for as many takes as we need. What normally happens is the largest special effects gag is the last shot of the night. So that kind of gives us all day to rig it, but we're rigging this while people are still filming, so we got to keep everything safe. And then by the end of the night, we've all been doing this for 12 hours. We're all pretty tired, but we still have to make sure everything is safe. When we rig something like this, the hardest part is that it's a practical location and we can't damage the building or any of the surrounding buildings.